Okay, let's do it.
Let's rock and roll, Larry. Let's get this show on the road.
All righty. I want to start off by saying good morning to everybody, and I want to thank you for joining us for our DryLINK E3 integration webinar. I'm Larry Carlson. I'm the Restoration Industry Manager for Phoenix.
And my name is Chris Laney. I'm one of the instructors and owners at the E3 Drying Academy and at the DeWalt Academy of Drying. And so we'll walk through a little bit of what the content today is going to look like. So we'll walk through what is Phoenix Restoration and what is DryLINK. What is the DeWalt Academy of Drying? What do we do at the DeWalt Academy of Drying? What is E3? And really, what are the benefits of bringing the technology that E3 has built and the technology that DryLINK has built and bringing that integration together? What kind of benefits does that bring to the restoration space and to restorers and carriers alike? We're going to go through, I'm going to jump off of this slideshow that you see. I'm going to go live on my phone, and we're going to walk through creating a job using DryLINK and using E3. We're going to walk through the flood house at the DeWalt Academy of Drying through DocuSketch, show you guys what that looks like. And then we're going to walk through that specific project that we did a few weeks ago using that integration of DryLINK and E3. We'll walk through that project summary so we can show you guys exactly what does that final report look like. How do we present this information at the end of the job? And what is that ultimately going to look like for your job file? We'll walk through how to sign up for DryLINK. If you use the integration, you don't need to have the E3 app. You'll be able to use it inside of DryLINK. We're going to go through Q&A. So we do have a few hundred people that have signed up for this. So I will try to go through at the end and save some time to go through Q&A. So if you have questions, please do let us know. Alan, you're saying there's no sound. You might want to check your speakers there. So we'll go through that Q&A. In the chat box, you do have my name, Chris Laney. You do have my email address and Larry Carlson's address. Glad to hear it's good now, Alan. Thank you. You do have our email addresses in there. So if for any reason we don't get to your Q&A, please know you can reach out to us directly.
Okay, starting with Phoenix. Since our beginning, Phoenix has always been on a mission to try and create great best equipment and tools that can save you the restorer's time, money, and really make you more successful. Most of you know, we manufacture a full line of restoration equipment. Building on our history, innovation, and expertise, in 2018, we introduced the DryMax XL, and that was the first Bluetooth-enabled restoration LGR. We brought that on, and we saw it was time that there was a lot of technology and benefits that could be brought to the restoration industry utilizing this Bluetooth technology. So, as I said before, we started in 2018 with the DryMax XL, and essentially the Bluetooth commands that you could do with that is you could get automatic readings off of that unit, and then you could also do some controls. You could adjust the RH so that it could be calibrated with your handheld meters and what you are using for the job. Recently, we've added the dry tag to our AirMax air mover. But really, the key to it is this dry tag, this little round Bluetooth beacon. And as Chris clicked on there, when you go into the app, you can actually look at the piece of equipment that it's attached to. You can see with the signal strength here how close your phone is to that piece of equipment. I actually had a contractor use this to locate a missing piece of equipment that ended up in a janitor's closet in the school. We also show the status, whether the machine is running or off. So here you can see it's running, and we also indicate the battery strength, so you know when you're going to need to remove battery. But there's a whole lot of information that's included when you've loaded that equipment into your company inventory and just clicked on it, you can see where it is. You can also see the last known location for that piece of equipment based on the location of the phone that it connected with. Okay. This dry tag can be mounted on any piece of equipment, whether we built it or not. And we have a way so that you connect it into the inventory so that all of your equipment is marked and tagged and all the information. I'm going to move over here to the DryMax Large, which is now called the DryMax BLE. It is also Bluetooth enabled now. Then we have another sensor called the DryTag RH. This does temperature and relative humidity, along with doing the status of the unit, whether it's running or not, and the location. This can be used for your affected areas, your unaffected areas, your HVAC readings. You can also mount it to the outlet of a dumb dehumidifier and essentially make it a smart dehumidifier. And then the readings of the outlet of that dehumidifier will be sent into the app. Finally, we have a DrySense. This is a moisture content meter. It's based on the wood scale. It's got a pair of pins on the back that you can use for putting into drywall. It also has an attachment if you want to run screws into some timber or other materials. Down here at the bottom is the dry phone. The dry phone is a leave behind phone, essentially acts as a hotspot. If you leave a dry phone on a job, you can take a look and see what's going on that job within 15 minutes of you logging on. And that 15 minutes is based on the fact that what we do is we collect data in that dry phone and send it up to our cloud every 15 minutes. So essentially you have 96 readings a day for your dehumidifiers and the status of your jobs. Finally, up at the top, we have a drawing report. And as we go through our project summary, we'll show you how you can actually click on a PDF and create a drawing report from all of the data that you've collected on your job, and you're able to submit that with your invoices. So that's that.
Appreciate that, Larry. Again, my name is Chris Slaney. I'm one of the instructors and owners at the DeWalt Academy of Drying, and obviously at the school here, we've developed E3. We do a 3-day hands-on drying class at our school, and then additionally, we took the algorithms that Chuck DeWalt has patented and came up with, and ultimately, the big challenge that I had when I first met Chuck was we have all these algorithms, and eventually we needed to put them into a technology. And the goal we ultimately had was we wanted to take that information, put it into a piece of technology, and then integrate it with systems like DryLINK to make it easier for technicians out in the field. One of the biggest challenges that we constantly hear at the school is everybody's challenge is I got all these different apps that I have to use, whether it's in the field or administratively, and how do we integrate those things together? So that's what we've been working with the DryLINK team to accomplish, and what we're going to share with you today. So what is E3 and what is our app? So inside of our application, you have multiple different calculations. There's 19 different functions. You have E3. What E3 provides for us is the evaporation ability of the air. And we never had that single metric in our industry. Temperature doesn't give us that, relative humidity, grains, vapor pressure. None of those give us the evaporation ability of the air. And if we're using everything besides using heat panels, we're using the ambient conditions as a medium to evaporate water, and we need to be able to look at what that evaporation ability of the air is, and E3 provides that. So to give you kind of an easy summary of what that means, if I'm drying Larry's house, and Larry's house has an E3 number of 100, and you're drying my house and I have an E3 number of 200, what that means is my house is going to dry twice as fast as Larry if all else stays the same. So that's really what E3 is. We also have specific daily targets. And so we're going to walk through what those targets look like, open and close system controls, and then all the equipment calculations as well. So The nice part is we not only with E3 do we evaluate that job while the job is progressing, we can evaluate that project before we start. We'll evaluate it during the project, and then it can be evaluated on the back end using E3. So the daily chamber targets are the first targets that we can utilize as an industry that tell us if I'm using this specific type of equipment, the grains outside are whatever they are, I have this day of the loss, this class of the loss, this elevation. So 5 specific metrics is what those targets are based off of. And so this is done through tested and proven equipment calculations and placement. And then we're ultimately going to evaluate those dehumidifiers. We can evaluate those desiccants to say, are they performing properly? Do we need to pivot and make a different a change or swap that equipment out? And then when we look at being able to justify our drying logs, one of the biggest challenges is how long did that job take to dry? Well, if I dry a job for 6 days and I hit my E3 targets every day, and I know that I achieved the maximum amount of drying that I could do with the setup that I have, E3 is going to back that up for you. And if it takes me 6 days to dry, now by using science and math, I can say that I should pay for 6 days, and the carrier and the consultant on the other side should be able to justify now by using that science and math, be able to justify that they need to pay you for the time frame that it took. So those are the benefits of E3 and what they bring to the industry.
So if you take DryLINK's data that's collected and make it available on a 24-hour basis or on each of your job site visits, you take that data, you can create data drying reports simply by clicking a PDF button on our summary. We do all of those readings are automated. You don't have any human interaction at all beyond pushing a button to collect those readings. So you don't have to worry about people transposing numbers or making up stuff, which I'm sure never happens. We've also been able to develop some asset management for inventory control that is completely hands-free. The devices do all of the work.
So with E3, one of the big things that E3 and DryLINK combine, what are the benefits together? Well, we've talked about it a lot at the school and said, okay, we can have evaluated data. Right now with E3, we can not just have a psychrometric chart that we're just looking at a bunch of numbers. We can actually now with E3 evaluate that data. That's a beautiful thing. We take it one step further with the benefits of DryLINK and E3 combined is now we can have unmanipulated data from DryLINK that is ultimately evaluated through E3. So a huge benefit there to be able to not just have a data set, but to be able to have them combined together in an unmanipulated data set that has been evaluated, not just before the project. So we can give equipment recommendations to say, I walked onto a hospital project. I need to get this project as dry as I can, as fast as I can. I can now look at the equipment recommendations up front and know what type of equipment is going to dry this the fastest. Is it going to be LGRs? Is it going to be desiccants under neutral, positive, or negative? Is it going to be heaters? And I can understand that information up front. Then I can evaluate that project all the way through. So that unmanipulated data set is really the main benefit that's going to be able to be provided in the simplicity of how the system really works for the restorers out there in the field. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing here for a quick second, and I'm going to log on to my phone. And I'm going to share my screen on my phone, and we're going to walk through. I just want to make sure, Larry, do you see my screen?
I see it.
Perfect. So I'm going to move this out of the way. And what I'm going to do here now, guys, is we're going to walk through a job. And this is just going to be an example. We don't have equipment up and running, so this is going to be an example job. But what I want to do is just walk through and show you the steps. One of the biggest challenges we had when we built E3, we built all the calculators, and it was great. And I'll show you that real quick. So we have in the E3 app all of these calculations. So all of these calculations here are single standalone calculations. And one of the challenges is if I'm going into a job, now I'm using all of these calculations, but I'm bouncing around through the app to get all of those. We wanted to create a simple, easy to use workflow that created consistent, repeatable results out there in the field for your team. So I'm going to walk through this job with you guys. So if I click the jobs, I click the plus button in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm going to create a new job. And we're just going to call this webinar. I'm going to put in the job name there. I can put in the description, and you're going to see the orange things are highlighted as these are the required items. I'm going to put in our flood house, 7731 Record Street, and it populates that for me right away. Now, off of that, it's going to populate some additional information. Once it knows that address, the nice part is we're going to pull from the nearest weather station that outside data. So the outside temperature, RH, and grain. So now we've taken a step for your team out in the field that they don't have to do by being able to capture that right away. I can plug in the insurance company's name and claim number. Here under drying recommendations, this is where everything starts. I get three different choices. I can use no recommendations, I can use E3, or I can use the IICRC. The IICRC, you'll get the recommendations that come from the appendix section on air movers and dehumidifiers. With E3, you're going to click the E3 button. Immediately, it's going to pull in what your current elevation is, which we utilize, and then it's going to pull in there that right now, currently at that address, it's 67 degrees at 60% RH out there. If I want to add a specific contact, if I want to put in Larry Carlson is my specific contact, and I can put in his specific phone number there and what that contact is. I can add additional context there as well. I can add a job note, and I can do talk to text, and I can put this water loss was caused by a pipe break. And again, I can just talk to text, and I can add just an abundance of information or any specific job notes that I want to add that's going to populate into that project summary that we'll show you guys a little bit later. So the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and add to the chamber. And now what you're going to see on this screen is you see one of 7. So there's 6 specific steps in the process. The 7th step is going to give you that project summary. So we can name the chamber. So whatever we want to name the chamber, I'm just going to leave it alone as chamber 1. And I can put what is the category of loss, 1, 2, or 3 here. We'll call it a category 1 loss. And what's the classification, which is a class 2. Now I can start building out my rooms. For this example, we're just going to do a 1-room job. When I pull in the flood house, you guys will be able to see the multiple rooms that were done inside of that specific job. So for this job, just going to make it real simple, a 20 by 20 room with an 8-foot ceiling. We're going to go ahead and calculate those. And on the floor, I'm going to put in the percentage of that floor is wet. I'm going to put in 100% of the floor is wet. We are going to ask, is the center of the floor wet? Yes or no? I can toggle between that. The center of the floor is wet. I do want to put yes. And here's why. We're going to calculate the amount of air movers that you're going to need in the center of that room. One thing we want to do is be able to dry this job from the outside in and the inside out of that room. And by having proper air movement in that room, we'll be able to do that. It's going to calculate the amount of square footage of the walls that are affected. It's going to ask me how much of those walls are wet. I'm going to say 25%. And then we're going to calculate the perimeter wall square footage. And I'm going to do that by the perimeter wall air movers that are needed. And I'm going to do that by plugging in the linear feet that are wet. So in this specific scenario, I'm going to say there's 70 linear feet of wet wall in this specific one room. It's going to ask me, are the walls wet above 2 feet? I'm going to put in this scenario, they're not. If they are, I'm just going to load in the amount of square footage above 2 feet that is affected, and we'll calculate the specific air movers that you need in that specific area. On the ceiling, I'm going to put that there's 100 square feet of the ceiling that was affected. And so it's going to calculate the amount of air movers that I'm going to need on the ceiling. Under the material type, I'm going to click drywall, wood, plaster, or concrete, depending on the type of material. will then calculate the specific type of air movers and the amount that you're going to need. If there's any offsets, I can add those. And I would just add additional rooms to the file. And again, can add a chamber note at any time. When I click continue, I'm going to move to the second step. Let me go back to that. That didn't do what I wanted to do. Okay, perfect. Will the average outside temperature be below 40 degrees? Yes or no? So the neat part here, if the temperature is going to be below 40 degrees, what that's typically going to mean is that the grains outside are going to be significantly low. At that point, we can use the outside for two different things. One, as a huge dehumidifier, because if the grains outside are less than 50, we can use that cool, dry air to bring that into our chamber to help act as an air conditioner to maintain specific temperatures that we need. We study this at the school, and we really look at during a class 1 or a class 4 that I want to keep the temperature using LGRs at 75 throughout the job. If I'm on a class 2 or 3, on the first 24 to 36 hours until the grains get to be 52 or less, I want to use that temperature at 90 degrees. So this helps me to maintain that. In this scenario, we're going to say that the average temperature will not be, and that we're going to use the HVAC system. Is there an HVAC system? We're going to say yes. And on this specific job, I'm going to calculate by looking at the condensing unit outside exactly how many BTUs of cooling is being created by that HVAC system. And we're going to be able to run the math to say, how do we use that HVAC system to help us to control the job on the front end, know the information up front so that we can control it instead of it controlling us on the back end. So we'll say in this specific job that there is 9 supply vents. And inside of the chamber, we're going to say there's 4 supply vents. It's going to ask, is the return inside the chamber? Yes or no? If it is, we're going to leave it as yes and click continue. Now we're on to step 3. This is what I was talking about a little bit earlier in the webinar. This is where we're ranking the equipment. We call this equipment rankings. This is where we're ranking the equipment that's being used, that we can choose to use on this job. And we're doing this based off the class of the loss and what's going on outside. Those two things are going to choose. And what you're seeing here is the average E3 number that each one of those primary equipment types can create based off of those specific class and outside grains. And then where you do worse, that's going to be the number that's worse than the absolute best. So here we're going to use LGR dehumidification. Inside of here, we're actually going to size this job, not based off a small, medium, or large. We're going to size it based off the specific dehumidifier that we're going to use. So I'm going to click the dehumidifier that I'm going to use, which is a Phoenix DryMax XL. And let's say I currently have 4 of those available. Where you see the add drying equipment button, what that's there for is not always do we have in our inventory the same exact dehumidifiers or the same exact air movers. In both steps under air movers and dehumidifiers, I can add different types of equipment. So let's say I need to use 2 different types of dehumidifiers on this job. I can then size that job based off of those specific types of dehumidifiers. So I'll go ahead and click continue. Now I'm on the air mover screen. Under the air mover screen, there's going to be times that you might have a job where I'm just doing stabilization. I don't need air movers. That's why we have a yes or no here. In this specific scenario, we are going to use air movers. Under the primary air mover type, I can click axial, centrifugal, or radial. Same thing as we did under the dehumidifiers. We're going to size this based off the specific make and model of that air mover. In this scenario, we'll go ahead and use the Phoenix Focus as our air mover, and we'll say that we have 20 of those available. If I was using additional air movers or additional types, I can go ahead and just add those types to it, just as we spoke about under the dehumidifiers. Click continue. Are we going to use air scrubbers on this job? We will say yes. I'm going to go down, and again, we're going to size this job based off the specific make and model. I'll use a Phoenix Guardian R Pro on this specific job, and the power setting on that is going to be high. We'll then calculate the air scrubbers for you and click continue. So in this specific job, it's just a 1-room job. We're not going to use a floor drying system on this specific job. If we are, we do calculate the amount of units you need and the maximum amount of mats based off of the type. So If we're using a floor drying system, we highly recommend the injector dry systems, best system we found that's out there to dry hardwoods or ceramic tile. So here I'm going to click the flooring type, pre-finished, sanded and finished, or ceramic tile, and then ultimately put in the amount of square footage here of that affected hard surface flooring. Again, we're going to calculate the units and then the maximum amount of mats. In this scenario, I'm going to go ahead and click no, but I wanted to walk you guys through that. When I click continue, what it's doing now is it's loading that chamber summary. Those quick 6 steps are going to get us to this chamber summary and the information that we ultimately need to take us to the next step. So let's review this chamber summary together. So what you're seeing is the chamber name, category, and the class of loss. What's going on outside, we've pulled that information in for us. Cubic footage, square footage, total square footage of that is wet, total linear footage of wet wall, the room sizes, all this information we put in. What's the HVAC system? How many total supply vents? How many chamber vents? What's our total equipment heat load? This is one thing that we know that a lot of restorers are not tracking what their equipment heat load. We've all went back to those jobs and that job has been really, really hot. It's really hot because we're creating more heat than what we have to cool that job and be able to control that ambient condition. By monitoring the heat load, understanding cooling capacity, now we can control that job. We really dig into that inside of our 3-day class as well. The drying equipment, what is available? And then we can scroll down. What is the E3 equipment recommendations? In this specific scenario, we need 1 LGR, we need 1 air scrubber, and we need 12 axle air movers. So we've given you those equipment recommendations right away up front. If I need to add more chambers, I can add more chambers. Sometimes we're going to have multiple chambers on that job, so I can add more chambers. So here I'm going to go ahead and click Finish Setup. Now I'm going to walk through and I want to load my equipment. So when I'm inside of the job site and I've set all my equipment and I'm inside, if I have multiple rooms, I'm going to have all my equipment set with my equipment off, and I'm going to go ahead and click the plus button. All my equipment that's in my inventory is going to come up, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to turn that equipment on. Once I turn that equipment on in each room, you're going to find that green indicator light that Larry was mentioning on those dry tags. You're going to find that showing up on the right-hand side here where you see the blue reception piece there under the unaffected 2. You'll see that green highlighted. And then I'm going to go hit right now and I'm going to click the 7 air movers that I need on this job. I needed 7 air movers. I needed 1 dehumidifier. And then I needed 1 air filtration device. And then I'm also going to click my dry tag RHs. I'm going to click my dry sense. And I'm going to go ahead and click my air scrubber that's down here at the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and assign those to the job. And it's going to say 1 or more of those units have been selected for another job. I've done some test jobs here, but I'll go ahead and click continue. Now, the equipment that I've selected, now I can go ahead and put them in each room. Great function here. I can go ahead and click. If I just have 1 chamber and I'm putting all that equipment in 1 chamber, I press this here. I go ahead and assign it to all. All the piece of equipment is now assigned to that chamber. Boom, done, loaded. That quick. I've now assigned those to that specific job. Next thing I'm going to do is go into my drying data, and I'm going to go ahead and create a visit. So now I'm going through and creating this visit. I know what's going on outside. If I was using the dry tags, I would ultimately, it would collect that unaffected reading for me. And I can collect it off of here. And it goes and pulls that in from that dry tag that I have sitting next to me. If I go into the chamber, that dehumidifier is currently just sitting right now. It's not running, but you'll see it's pulled in what the ambient conditions are, 74, 23 at 28 going into that dehumidifier. Obviously that dehumidifier is not running. If that dehumidifier was running, it would calculate what the E3 value is of the conditions coming out of that dehumidifier. GD, what that stands for is the grain depression. What is that specific grain depression for that specific dehumidifier? EXGD is how we're going to evaluate that dehumidifier. What is the expected grain depression of that dehumidifier? There's systems that are currently out there that say the grain depression of every dehumidifier should be 5 or higher. Well, I can tell you if a dehumidifier is sitting in a condition that's 28 grains, the expected grain depression on that dehumidifier is 0. So that grain depression on that dehumidifier, because it can't get the grains down any lower. Even when the grains are in the 40s, those dehumidifiers can't produce a grain depression of 5. It might have an expected grain depression of 3. And if it's producing 5 or 6, it is performing extremely well. So we're going to monitor that based off of science and math, not just a made up number. I can go ahead and add the HVAC. If I was using a dry tag, I can do that. Or what I want to show you here is quickly, I can use a manual entry. So let's say coming out of that, and again, this is an example with 65 and 65, I'm going to load that. So I can do a manual entry into that, and then I can go ahead and click done. I can click finish there, and then I can also do the moisture readings. So I can go in here and edit this. I can go to my moisture points, and I can add a moisture point. Now it's picking up this DrySense unit here. So on that DrySense, what is the location of that? What is the specific material type? And what is the target? It's going to pick up what that equipment is and what that current moisture content reading is. Now that system is currently offline, but I can go ahead and put a manual entry and say, right now, the moisture content of that is 40. And I got a target of 12 on that floor. And I'm going to say that material is plywood and save that. You can see how simple and easy they've made this system and combining that together. So I go ahead and click done. I click finish. And if I go back now, I've created this specific job. Now, each and every day, when I go back and I want to pull a visit, I can do that using smart equipment. If I'm sitting at the office, anywhere that I'm sitting, if I walk on site, just that quickly, I press the plus button, I go through that same exact process, and I can ultimately pull all that information in. Anything additional there, Larry, you want to add? You're on mute, buddy.
I was going to say that you can either walk on the job site, push that plus button, or you can, like you said, you can do it from your office. You can collect all of the readings of what's going on. We're not trying to avoid having people go and make job site visits, but we're trying to give you the information that's pertinent for you to decide, where do I want to go first? What's going on here? Is it our problem? So
very easily, guys, here's where you're going to send the records right here. I can send the records once the job is done, and I can produce that and send that through a text message, an email. I can send those records to the office, and ultimately we're going to walk through that specific process. So I'm going to stop sharing from my phone and go back to the slideshow here. And you see my screen again, Larry?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So what you guys are seeing here is this is a sketch of our flood house that we have here at the DeWalt Academy. And I want to walk you guys through what this is. And then we're going to walk you through that project summary that we had ultimately talked about. And so I want to pull up DocuSketch and just kind of walk you guys through what our flood house looks like, so you guys kind of have a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at when we look at this project summary. So here in DocuSketch, a nice 360 tool that we can utilize. This is the flood house. All of these, we got ceramic tile, multiple different types of hardwood. You got some carpet and pad in these rooms. All that's affected. You can see the place is pretty well saturated. We'll go to the back of it. There's some bathrooms. This is kind of looking at that main area from the back side that we were just looking at. And then ultimately going over here to the kitchen. Down this hallway right here where my cursor's at, you also have a bathroom off of that specific place. So I want to just show you guys what we're looking at. When this is completely set up and running, here's what you're looking at. And this is the report that we're going to look at throughout these specific days of that job running. Okay, so you can see the equipment set up. We go through this at the school. Why do we set up equipment? How much? But we're taking the exact equipment recommendation that E3 is providing and then ultimately applying it. And then we're using smart equipment to set on that using the sensors to ultimately produce unmanipulated data sets. So again, this is what that sketch looks like of all of that equipment set up. The injected dry systems here running on the hardwoods, multiple different dehumidifiers. So we have one of the DryMax XLs. We have two 250 Maxes that are running the Phoenix Guardian R Pros, and then the air movers that are set up throughout that project. So now I want to walk through and have Larry walk you guys through this project summary. So this is the link for that project summary. So I'm going to click on this link, and what it's going to do is pull up that project summary.
Yeah, when you are in the app and you hit that send records, that link is created and it's emailed or sent wherever you determine to send it. And once you've allowed somebody to view a job or to look at the send records, if they go back tomorrow and look at it, they'll see the progress. It'll automatically be updated. So they'll be able to follow the job along with you. So you have some critical jobs or somewhere where you want to have keep a an adjuster up to date with what's going on. It's a valuable tool. So here we're looking, this is the project summary from that, clicking that send records. We've got the information as far as the location and so on, everything that you filled in. Got the date that it was started. Here we have a series of switches where you can either turn on Fahrenheit or Celsius, feet or meters, grains per pound or grams per kilogram, pints per day or liters per day, and cubic feet per meter, or your cubic meters per hour. Going down, we had one chamber. This is a flood house. This is a job that was done about 3 weeks ago, I believe. And there are actually 9 different rooms in this chamber, and each one's listed out. But there we have the data. We have how much hardwood floor and what type it was. You have the cooling capacity. This is so maintaining temperature control in your drying chamber is essential to get the results that you want to get. Here you have it. You have how much additional cooling you may need, or if it was during a time when it was under 40 degrees, they give you, I don't know, Chris, do they show additional cooling, or does it show the amount of ventilation you need to bring in from outside?
It'll show the exact CFM that needs to be exchanged between inside and outside to maintain the specific temperature and the desired inside temperature that they've set inside the app.
And I've seen you guys do that during some of your winter classes, and
Yes.
use the variable speed on an air scrubber and a meter, and you tune it. And I'll tell you, that's on 90 degrees is what your target is, and you keep it that way.
Yes.
So now we can go down, and this is with our summary. We have charts, and here we have an affected area, and here's the grains per pound of our affected area over the course of the job. And you click on each one, and it gives you that exact reading. We didn't do any moisture readings or moisture content meters on this job, so we're just going to move right over to the outside and unaffected. And again, we track it all. Everything's time stamped when it was taken and what the conditions were. Finally, if you go to E3, here we track the E3 numbers for the conditions that we just showed before. And importantly, here we have this dotted green line, and this dotted green line is the target E3. So this is based on outside conditions, category, class, all of the information you fed into the app, and the amount of, and the dehumidifiers you're using and the quantity. This is where it says your E3 ought to be after you've set up your equipment. So this would be 24 hours after you've started the job, right, Chris?
Yeah, so in this scenario, so the job started on the 28th. So on what we call day 0, which is the day we start the job, there's no specific E3 target. So moving forward to the first day of the job here, we had an E3 target of 113. We had an E3 actual of 177, meaning we're exceeding what those specific targets are. And as you move forward to the 29th, you'll see what the target is 111. We're at 177. The target now on the 30th was 151. The actual is 205. And again, you're just starting to see each and every day. As we move forward in the job, the targets are going to go up. The actual should stay with it. And that way now we got purpose and meaning behind what we're doing out there in the field, and we'll be able to track that drying process.
Moving on down, we provide you with an equipment summary showing you what equipment was used on the job, how many, and then we have a cumulative of the job days that those units were on the job. Now, I don't think this job was hit as completed, so our total quantity of job days on each of those things is a little bit higher. But this helps you put together exactly what was used on the job. You can verify that that equipment was running on the job because we have the accelerometer in those dry tags letting you know what's on and what's off. If somebody turns equipment off, it'll actually, you can set it up so it'll send you an alert saying somebody turned off a dehumidifier, somebody turned off my air movers. Maybe you blew a circuit and you lost 7 air movers and a dehumidifier. The app will send you an alert letting you know that something went wrong on the job. Those units are off. So now we move down to the project details by chamber. What we've been looking before is a summary. Here, if we click on this plus button, we get essentially all the data. Each of the rooms, the conditions that existed in there, what was wet, what was dry, what the volumes were, the inserts, the outserts. Go down a little bit more. You can have, again, description of the material. Was it wet in the center? The lineal feet of walls, which is what you use for basing your air mover selections. Then you have the recommendations, what E3 is going to be recommending and what you actually put on the job. So again, the summary brings down. Now, if we go scroll down here, and again, air readings, we can look at each of the dehumidifiers and what they were doing as far as the grains per pound of the outlets. Moisture readings, unfortunately, like I said, we didn't take it on this job. Now the E3 numbers. So here are the E3 numbers that all of the dehumidifiers were producing and what was in the affected area. So this gray line's the affected area, and you can see that our E3s were all well above, which is going to drive up and speed up that drying process. So it's where you want to be. And you can prove that you were there. So, and again, these are each of the readings that were taken, all of the visits, all of the data that was collected on those visits. You can also do a summary where you can look at it essentially in each of the rooms and what was in each of those pieces, what equipment was in each room. Even though all of these rooms were in one chamber, this breaks it down so you can see where each piece of equipment was.
I'll scroll back up to the top, Larry, and you can.
Yeah. So the other thing you can do is you got 2 buttons here. You can do a PDF of your summary, or you can do a PDF of your full report. You click on that, and this is actually going on in real time. So this is how long it's going to actually take for the app to create this PDF drying report for you. We wanted to do those 2 things as far as the send records and the PDF. We wanted to do it in real time so that you understood how quickly this is able to be done. So you look at that PDF, scroll back up to the top. There's a spot on here where you can insert your own logos. So it is definitely your drying report, has all of the critical information that you have put in. Everything that we showed in the job summary and the job details is all outlined down here. It's just in a printable format, something that you can easily send in along with your invoices. So this is verifying what you've got. I don't know how many times we've gotten reports from contractors saying they haven't had invoices questioned when they've been submitting the drawing reports. So that's it. Anything you want to add, Chris, to that?
No, not at all. I think it's a very comprehensive report. Be the only thing that I'll add that that definitely outlines the purpose and meaning behind what we did. And ultimately what we're trying to do is justify not just for payment, but also we want to use this documentation to protect our own company and the liability that that we're under on doing these types of projects. So that documentation is crucial for multiple different things.
So I'm sure you're all sold right now, and you're all just anxious and biting at the bit to go ahead and get E3 and DryLINK integration. It's easy to sign up. You can go onto our Phoenix website, click on DryLINK, and we actually have a button that you can click on that'll download the app. Once you've downloaded the app, you can make your selections and essentially set up your subscriptions. Go to the next screen. I'll show you because we have a couple of different subscription levels. DryLINK Basic is free. There you just download the app, use it on your phone. It'll give you dehumidifier control and that sort of thing. It'll give you last known location of equipment that based on when it was connected in with the phone. DryLINK Jobs is this overall data collection that we do on the jobs. We're keeping track of air movers, we're keeping track of air scrubbers, we're keeping track of dehumidifiers, and we're creating that send records button that you can click to bring all that information into a viewable format. Also, which you can look at with our web portal, you can look at it on your computer at home or anywhere in the world, actually, you've got internet connection. So that DryLINK job starts at $49 a month. That $49 doesn't include E3. A new feature that we've added is Asset Manager. Asset Manager starts at $99 a month. This is truly hands-free asset management. All of the work is done by sensors. The only thing you have to do is essentially click a button and you can see where your trucks are, where your equipment is, what's available, what's on a job, and importantly, maybe what's missing. If you go with the Asset Manager, and that $99 is based on 1 to 999 pieces of equipment. Once you go over to 1,000, then the rates start to go up a little bit, but $99 does that. E3 starts at $99 a month. It has DryLINK jobs, and essentially you're paying $49 extra to have the E3 on a per month basis. You can add that also to asset management, then it'd be $149 a month. So it's easy.
Perfect. On the E3 site, just so you guys know, where can you learn a little bit more about E3? You can download our app in the App Store. There is a user manual built within our app. But ultimately, the idea, guys, is to utilize our information inside of our integration partners like DryLINK so that you're not using two different pieces to it. If you want to learn more about E3 and dig deeper into it, you can go to our website and ultimately learn about our 3-day class that we have. And we typically do one about once every single month. So appreciate everybody watching today and joining the webinar. I want to go through, we just had a couple questions there. One, will DryLINK and E3 sync with Mika? Currently,
Not yet.
Not yet. So
Yeah,
that's the answer there.
Answer. We're in discussions with Mika. We've been in discussions with Mika for over a year. So right now, what you have to do is you have to cut and paste your data into Mika, but we're open to it.
Yes. Next question from Norman. How does that work in?
Oh, I'm sorry, you broke up.
Sorry about that. How does the app work inside the Encircle app?
With
so it is integrated with Encircle.
Yeah, if you go with the Encircle, you can click on DryLink in Encircle, and we do essentially we create the drawing report. I would suspect, I really haven't tried it to see if you do the E3 integration within DryLink. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to do that and have that drawing report created for Encircle. It's a great question. I'll have to get the answer to that. I have to talk to Chris.
Yeah, appreciate that, Norman. We can talk to Chris in Circle and get you some further information around that. Let me scroll down here. I think there's a couple other ones. Will the report apply pricing by the piece of equipment I've provided? So I think we went over the pricing and how that works. Do you need a DryLink phone for the asset manager?
Yes. But to do it the best way, if you just want to do asset management and you're not doing your job site monitoring, you're not collecting your job data, we actually have figured out a way to not have a dry phone on the job, but essentially work it where we're tracking all the equipment in a truck. When it goes to a location for a job, it knows what was on the truck when it got there. It knows what's on the truck when you left. What's missing is automatically put on that job. So we run into some questions or requests to make that asset management as simple and foolproof as possible. Are we frozen? I
Looks
guess
like maybe Chris's internet went out, but I can look at a couple other more questions here, Larry. So can you upload a floor plan without measurements?
no, not to DryLink. Now, whether or not you're able to do something like that with E3 through the DocuSketch, I don't know. But at this point, no, we don't have an integration carried to that point with the diagramming.
Okay. Next question. If we previously purchased a subscription with E3 as well as DryLink, are these automatically usable to us via the DryLink app?
Yeah. Once you sign up with the app, and as far as the subscription, I should have probably mentioned because people love free stuff. Anybody who signs up, you've got 30 days free. Currently, with our app, we haven't fully implemented all of the subscription data yet. I think that's going to be coming in October. So right now, if you use send records, you pay like $5 per job if you hit send records, but that's going to be switching over to that subscription rates that I showed you. But anybody who signs up like today, you get at least 30 days of free usage, both of the E3 and of the DryLink.
Great. Next question. Can you send me a recording of this video? Yes, we will be sending out to everyone that attended this webinar. We will send out a recording. It'll either be maybe later this afternoon or early tomorrow. And then this is more of a compliment, Larry, than a question. Derek said, "Where was this 10 years ago when I was deciphering crumpled paper dry log stained with Cat 3 water? Love what you guys are doing. Always up in your game."
That's nice. Thank you. If anybody wants any questions, wants to talk about Chris, since he's offline, we can, do a full disclosure on Chris if you got anything.
Yeah, does anyone else have any questions? I'm not seeing any at the moment, but if you do have any other questions, we do have, I believe Chris put, we got Chris back. That's lots of
Chris what I said about him.
Right there at the end, guys. Technology loves us, right? Sorry about that. I don't know. All of a sudden, I lost complete internet. So my apologies.
That's all right. We just had a couple more questions that we answered. We got one more. Looks like, is there a place on the app for photo documentation?
No, not in DryLink. That's why integrations with like Encircle and so on that really have expanded on the photos We have our path in DryLINK, which is our job site data collection, and we don't want to be stepping on other people's toes. I don't want to be doing, as far as sketching, I don't want to be doing job site photos. I want to stay in our lane, and our lane is the job site data collection and that asset management.
In the same thing there, guys, on the E3 side, you know, we have the things that we do really, really well. Larry outlined what DryLINK does well. E3, there's no photo documentation inside of the E3 app standalone. E3 is a calculation of proprietary algorithms that we have that answer the questions that our industry never could. So we're going to stay in that lane just like DryLINK, and again, integrate our information into systems like that to help answer the questions that we do. And ultimately, the goal is, like Encircle there, if you're using DryLINK and E3 inside of Encircle and you're doing everything in Encircle, you're making your life easier by getting the benefits of other systems built within one. And I think that's the goal for a lot of technology companies in the industry right now, is how do we get these integrations done to make the ultimate job easier for restorers out there in the field.
Yep. We got another question or no?
I think Mark was just making a statement there. We appreciate that, Mark. He just said, thanks for being a pivotal part of the revolutionary advancing of our industry with new technology and education. Both companies have created a platform for our contractors to be better than the day they were before, and streamlining the process to be better and easier, faster, and reducing labor costs. So appreciate that, Mark. That is the goal. That is what we're working towards. And again, remember, technology is always living. We're going to continue to try to improve these things and advance these for our industry. Anything else you got, Larry? We're coming up on time here.
Nothing. We've got 3 minutes left.
We did good. I appreciate everybody taking the time to attend. Just so everybody knows, we will send this out. It was a recorded session here, so we will send it out to anybody on your teams that weren't able to join. So we'll get that sent out to everybody that registered. And we appreciate you guys taking the time to look at the integration of DryLINK and E3 and make it a great week. Thank you, guys.
Yep. Thank you.